Welcome to another episode of Real Talk on MOJO 50. I'm your host, John Griffing. Yes, folks, it has finally happened. We've got cows. We got cows, folks.
Watch me.
Julia, I know you're upset. You just gotta breathe. We both just gotta breathe. Cow. I gotta go, Julia. We got cows. Another cow.
Actually, I think that was the same one.
All right, folks. Thanks to, that was Twister, of course. That was a classic 1990s film I grew up with about storm chasers, people who chase tornadoes for a living, or such as it is. Great movie. Helen Hunt. I mean, if you have a chance to see it, Bill Paxton at his peak before he died, and I mean, a lot of things about the movie that are unrealistic, but apparently one of them is not. Cows are now going to be a sign of the apocalypse, and they are, folks, because the liberal left, the loony liberal, environmentally conscious, eco-friendly, Captain Planet worshipping liberal left in California have decided that cow farts pose a grave threat to the planet. Yes, I wish I were kidding, folks, especially since they could have saved us all the trouble just by not even talking and stopping the farts that are coming out of their trap. Folks, this is ridiculous. We've reached the point of the absolutely absurd when you can't even take a breath without someone trying to raise money off non-existent global warming that not only has been disproven, but was followed last time they did this, 1998. It's the warmest year on record. Oh, run for your lives. The Earth will increase in temperature an average of 1 degree. Yeah, folks, that was the claim the UN was making. It's going to increase an average of 1 degree. Grab your children. Run for the hills. That was the claim of the UN. No one ever says what the claim was. They just assume that you haven't done the homework and that you're going to draw all kinds of draconian, end of the world kind of conclusions, which you do. So just clearing that up for you. Last time they did this and said it was the warmest year on record, oh my God, we kind of had a cooling trend that lasted 16 years with record cold temperatures, according to NASA satellites. I don't know about you folks, but I trust NASA satellites a darn sight more than I trust some bureaucrat from India or Pakistan in the United Nations Secretariat building in New York. I don't know. Something about the science aspect of it. It just tells me, a NASA satellite. I'm going to trust that before I trust anything that comes out of the third world hellhole on the East River called the United Nations. And that's the reality check for today. We got cows. So cow methane, folks, that is the new liberal raison d'etre, the new cause célèbre of the left, is stop cow farts. Please, we must stop cow farts. Please do it. If you do anything, don't donate to UNICEF. Don't help a poor kid who can't feed himself. We're past that. We've transcended starving children in Africa. Now we have to worry about possible, negligible, and very, very strained and exceedingly tenuous connections between cow methane and temperatures. Not even causal connections, mind you. Correlations. Correlation of temperatures, high and low temperatures, to cow methane. I'm going to repeat that. The left is now more concerned about correlations between cow farts and increases and decreases in temperature. Starting to get a little hot under the collar with all the problems, the real problems humans are facing right now, like babies leaving their mother's womb only to be treated like a defective calf. Oh, wait, there's another cow reference on a slab somewhere in New York State, folks. How about that as a problem? How about that as a really real issue that we need to actually tackle before we worry about what's coming out of a cow's ass? And with that, I have to go to something that Texas Ag Commissioner Sid Miller told me today. He wasn't able to be on the show today, folks, but we got to give him a shout out. Commissioner Sid Miller, thank you for all you do for the state of Texas And we also have to note that you have a ranch with actual cows on them. In fact, if I recall, Sid, the maiden voyage of this show, you were tending to a sick calf, and that came first. So I think you know something about cows. You certainly know plenty about horses. Folks, to give you an idea of just how much expertise in agriculture Sid Miller has personally, here are a few of his awards. His ranch, his horse breeding business has won. He had the 2006 AQHA Open High Point Tie-Down Mare. He had the 2006 AQHA Amateur Tie-Down World Champion. He had the 2007 AQHA Amateur Tie-Down World Champion that year as well. 2009 PRCA Tie-Down Roping Horse of the Year. These are horses he's bred, folks. He had the 2011 Adequan Select World Champion Tie-Down. I mean, folks, this guy is immersed in the industry that he regulates and runs. It's the only, as he always jokes, it's the only industry that requires you to have a conflict of interest before you can run it. Well, he did, folks. He sent us a statement today. Sid took time out of his busy schedule tending to the president and tending to our state's livestock to tell us a little bit about cows and cow farts. And you gotta admire a man who can cut through the bull, pun intended. And I'm gonna read it to you because it's just so funny, and it's something that liberal quote unquote scientists, and I use that term very loosely, as should they. After I read this, you'll see why. They really need to just check on basic factual assumptions before coming out with things like stop the cow farts. I mean, by itself, I would have said, hey, what's number one on that list? What's our third? What's our fourth? And by the time I got to 10 on the list, we'd have let's hype cow farts and make it a social media thing. We'll scare a few people. Maybe get some clicks, some likes, some higher conversion rate on our website. I mean, I would have assumed that cow fart hype would have been like way down the list, somewhere around Night of the Living Dead, Mummy's Return. Things that people can't really be convinced of with rational thinking adults that use their brains in normal ways. So here's what Sid Miller, Texas Ag Commissioner, explained to us today about the nature of cow farts such as they are. He says, well, the joke's on them. Cows are ruminates, which means they have 4 stomachs, folks. Ruminates cannot fart. Let me repeat that. According to the man who is trusted with the entire agricultural health and well-being of the state of Texas, this gentleman, who has many cows, says ruminates cannot fart. Can't, won't, ain't gonna do it, not gonna happen. 'Tis impossible, folks. No cow has ever farted, Sid Miller says. Problem solved. I like the way he thinks. So, California, you heard that. Maybe check on basic biology and anatomy before you go around saying, Chicken Little says cow farts are going to destroy us. I'm sorry, maybe there is too much methane out there. I mean, because if there's that little common sense, I mean, they just can't click Google and go, do cows fart? Let's check this real quick, just to make sure, because some organisms can't, like rats, which is why petri dishes of soda, folks, of soda pop, kill rats. It's kind of messy, but they can't process carbonated drinks. You do the math, kaboom! Rats in the attic. Not really a good thing to clean up. But I'm just making the point. You could have Googled it, liberals. You could have just Googled it. You could have gone, wait a minute. Let's do this thing that we always do to catch conservatives in their own non-existent webs and minor incongruencies and things that we then blow out of proportion to make conservatives look like liars. Let's do the same thing we do when we do that, just to double check our facts, so that they can't make us look like the biggest things I can't say on the air, the biggest dumb Fs in the history of dumb Fs. Liberals who think cow farts are even possible, because they can't fart, folks. It's biologically, it doesn't happen. Cows do not fart. Hashtag cows can't fart. Moving on, we have a special guest with us today. His name is Dennis Allen Miller. He's a surveyor from deep in the heart of Texas, in Tyler, Texas. It's a nice spot up there, and frankly, he's one of these surveyors who actually is the bread and butter, the backbone of the Texas energy sector. He's the guy that goes out and finds the spots where we drill, where we frack, where we suck up that good sweet crude oil, and we keep our cars going, and we keep our lights on. And also, folks, because of guys like this, we've made Texas the #1 supplier of oil and natural gas to the rest of the U.S. before Canada and before Saudi Arabia. The people who brought you 9/11, Saudi Arabia. I'm not a party to that lawsuit, so I can say that all the frick I want. Saudi Arabia brought you 9/11, folks. That and a few people who were in office at the time and just before that. But they were just passive observers. So we won't get into that today because that would make me a truther. And I'm really more of a factor or a factoid-esque person. I believe in facts. We'll have that conversation another day. But Saudi Arabia, not good. We replaced them. We're now supplying America's oil. We're now pumping their gas. We are now turning on the lights for the rest of the United States, which makes us a pretty cool place. It makes Texas even more relevant than it was before, even when it just thought it was really relevant, which made it pretty relevant anyway. Texas is now not only giving everybody the energy they need just to get through a single day, we're probably going to be doing even more of that. In fact, we're probably about to absorb the entire dairy farm industry, the entire cow-related industries in California are about to be Texas cow-related industries, and we've already got a lot of that. In fact, we're already stuffed to the gills with cow. Let's just look at some of these stats that Sid Miller sent over today. And again, folks, he's the Texas Agriculture Commissioner. He's also a personal friend to Donald Trump. And just if you don't believe me, just Google it. And I think that's pretty cool, folks. So props to Sid Miller, our Texas Agriculture Commissioner. Here's something he sent over today about Texas's cow-related industries. Okay, Texas ranks #1 in the nation in the total number of cattle and calves. That's 12,500,000 Texas head of cattle in 2018 alone, folks. And that's 13% of total U.S. cattle. That is #1 in the nation. Now imagine what happens when we get California's cows. I mean, we got cows takes on a whole new meaning. Again, referencing Twister. Love that movie. Check it out. Have a nice nostalgia night. Watch Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt hack out their marriage on screen while they deal with F5 tornadoes and dash and hide under bridges and constantly escape the very obvious and likely tragic death that would befall them in real life. So anyway, the folks who believe that cow farts are actually the greatest threat to our environment are the same kind of people who told us that ethanol was cleaner and more energy efficient and better than burning fossil fuels in our gas tanks. Guess what, folks? It's actually a greater pollutant. It's a higher concentrate. The particulates block out more light and cause more concentrated pollution in the upper atmosphere than good old fossil fuels, diesel or regular, folks. Can you believe it? And yet liberals will believe anything if somebody from Greenpeace or somebody who professes to care about Mother Nature and God's environment, and that if they just say they care about the environment and they give them enough marijuana, liberals will believe that something that's actually the opposite of good for the environment, like ethanol, is good for the environment. In fact, ethanol burns up way faster in your car too, which means you have to use more of it. And here's the big rub, folks. Ethanol, get it? Ethanol is made from corn. It requires us to take half the corn harvest, to take half of our grain, it requires us to take all this food, as it were, food that feeds starving people, and turn it into fuel for about half the time that your regular full tank of fossil fuels would buy you on the open road. Now, I ask you, reasonable, logical people who are listening to Real Talk right now, does that seem logical to you? Does that seem like it's good for the environment to you? Would you think it would be more practical not to drive up the average unit cost of food when we just cured starvation last century and we just kind of eliminated hunger? Now we have pockets of hunger cropping back up because America took half of its grain and corn harvest and burned it up in tanks that we're driving with. Would you think that it'd be better maybe to go back to the way we were doing it until technology advances to such a point that we, reasonably speaking, can drive without fossil fuels? Wouldn't it be better not to artificially and arbitrarily change the way we conduct our business so that someone with a soft spot for Ted Turner propaganda and UN, nonsense, really, folks. I mean, it's based on nothing but claims that they've made arbitrarily. Wouldn't it be better just to go back to the things that are based on facts and things that are based on practical approaches to life? I think so, especially since they're actually better approaches to the environment as well. Would you believe, folks, that the porcupine caribou are not only doing just fine in Sarah Palin's oil-driven Alaska, where they built all those pipelines in the Anwar, and the left was freaking out in the 90s and the 2000s. They were going, oh my God, the porcupine caribou are going to die. And it turns out the porcupine caribou have doubled, tripled, quadrupled in number. They're going nuts. I mean, they're going to have to award permits soon because they're going to be, kind of getting too close to the peoples. So how'd that happen, liberals, if oil pipelines are just so automatically just horrible for the environment? Because they created heating sources for the porcupine caribou in winter, and they were able to protect their young from the harsh realities of Alaskan winter by congregating along the pipelines. So, libs, maybe this is sort of means that humans are organisms that are part of the equilibrium of the ecosystem, and maybe we're not only capable of dislodging equilibrium in the ecosystem, maybe we're also capable, and more often than not, responsible for increasing the equilibrium of the ecosystem, and sometimes even expanding the role that other organisms and forms of life can play in this wonderful thing we call Earth. How about maybe, just maybe, before you start running around in circles going, cow farts, oh God, maybe just ask yourself, is it possible that human beings are actually better for the environment in many respects than bad for it? I know. You watched Captain Planet when you were growing up, and Earth, Wind, Fire, Water, together our powers combined. I am Captain Faggot. Okay, you watched that on CNN-funded programming growing up. I get it. You watched PBS. You watched all these things that were market sampled and formulaic tested, so that they knew when you were watching this that there was a very strong likelihood of a certain outcome, to buy a certain product, to buy a certain lifestyle. So your really just default instinct is to go, human bad, humans are bad, business evil, they're raping the earth, because that's what businesses do, and also employ me so I can say this. But you also need to maybe consider that you're an idiot that's in a basement that's owned by your mother, and life's gonna suck, as Chris Farley said, when you're living in a van down by the river eating government cheese. Folks, it's important that we stop letting idiots dictate the dialogue and the conversation on things that affect you and me and our children on a day-to-day basis. Humans are better than non-humans. Humans are not just other animals, folks. And it doesn't take a self-professing Christian that believes the world only existed for 100,000 years. Okay, it doesn't take a wacko like that to acknowledge that humans are self-aware, and that's a unique quality that cannot be observed in any other species that exists, in any other animal kingdom even, that exists. Self-awareness and functions beyond the basic and cognitive are something that humans possess, that no other creature possesses. Folks, I gotta tell you, that's pretty darn special. Whatever you believe, you can observe that and acknowledge that, and if you can't, then you're worse than Richard Dawkins, who even acknowledged when pressed finally, when pressed with logic that was so unassailable that he could no longer dismiss those who made a cogent argument that there was some intelligent force behind the universe. He finally, just kind of casually dribbled out that, it was probably some advanced alien race that came and seeded our planet with humans with the intent of coming back long ago. So even Richard Dawkins can't imagine a universe without some order to it brought by an intelligent agency that's higher than his own. Even he had to invent space aliens in order to replace God in his own reality, folks. Speaking of reality and what makes it real and what makes our perception of it real, let's look at a famous Frenchman. Words you won't hear me say very often, folks. Rene Descartes walked into a bar and the bartender says, would you like a Jack and Coke? And Descartes replies, I think not, and disappears. Just a little bit of droll academic humor for any professors or people with PhDs listening to this show. We have to keep it alive and fresh for everybody, folks. I'd like to make sure that all the jokes get laughs out of every demographic on this program. But real talk has to be real, not just to normal people. It has to be real to highly educated people and highly uneducated people. We have to keep it real all around the board. What does that joke mean? Well, it's referring to the man who founded modern Western philosophy, the basis of which is the simple notion that simply by our act of thought, the act of you and me thinking right now, that act of the mind, well, Rene Descartes, this Frenchman, this French philosopher said, he reasoned that that act alone proved we exist. Cogito ergo sum, Latin for I think, therefore I am, the great offering of one of the only Frenchmen you will ever hear me say a kind word toward. In the simple and now today we would say childlike logic of Rene Descartes, are the actual seeds of human civilization and order. For without thought and without awareness of thought, there can be no right, wrong, reason for anything. Our ability to be self-aware, and that is something that no other organism possesses. Well, humans, we don't just poop, pee, eat, sleep, and do it all over again. We don't, folks. We are aware of things beyond our own ability to comprehend them at this time. That's pretty special, folks. So enough, liberals, with cow farts. You want to stop carbon dioxide emissions? Shut your traps and save us all the headache. And save us from having to listen to your ill-informed, idiotic, and anti-human agenda that you want to force on the rest of us while exempting yourselves. When we return, we'll have Dennis Allen Miller with us, folks, a surveyor who decides where we drill and where we frack. We need to stop arguing with idiots, folks. They'll beat us with experience every time. In the meantime, remember, folks, that cows don't fart. This is Real Talk with John Griffing on MOJO 50. We'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Shelby, and I'm a brilliant choice for this competition to become the next happy California cow. I think you should pick me so I can trade this bloody fog for the sunny fields of California. You can see I'm a rather attractive cow. I've received more than a bit of praise for me patterns and spots, especially this one on me bum. Looks just like the Queen.
Great milk comes from happy cows. Happy cows come from California. Look for dairy brands with the real California seals.
Vote for Shelby, love.
This is my daughter, Jen, and she is the obvious choice to become the next happy California cow. Tell them why, Jen.
I want to be the next happy cow.
She was born to be a star. When we had her, we just knew.
Mom.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So, I really like to...
It's her destiny, if you know what I mean. When she was 3...
Mom, let me do it!
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
So, So.
Please pick me. I mean,
Great milk comes from happy cows. Happy cows come from California.